I get it, you're standing over your backyard pool, staring at the little bucket of chlorine tablets you've been lugging around for months, wondering if there's a smarter way to keep the water clear without turning your weekend swim into a chemistry lab. Maybe you've heard about salt chlorine generators, but the idea of wiring something up to an above-ground pool feels intimidating, especially when every DIY video you find seems to assume a fancy in-ground setup. You're also watching the price tag and thinking, what if I spend a few $100s and it still doesn't work for my pool size? That hesitation is exactly why I wanted to dig into the Hayward W3AQ AquaTrol system before I mentioned it to anyone. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the AquaTrol isn't a generic add-on. It's engineered specifically for above-ground pools up to 18,000 gallons, which covers most residential round or oval pools you'll find in a suburban backyard. The biggest draw for a lot of people is that it eliminates the need to handle chlorine tablets or granules. Instead, you add ordinary pool-grade salt to the water, and the unit takes care of turning that into a steady stream of chlorine. On paper, that sounds like a win-win, but the real question is how it performs once you actually hook it up and start using it day to day. Setting it up is a bit more involved than just dropping a new filter in, but it's not rocket science. You'll need to run a short length of hose or pipe from the unit's inlet to the pool skimmer, and then connect the outlet back into the pool circulation line. The kit comes with the necessary fittings, and the straight blade line cord makes the plumbing straightforward if you've done any basic pool maintenance before. The trickiest part for first-timers is finding a spot for the control module that stays dry and out of direct sunlight. Most people mount it on a nearby wall or a sturdy PVC stand. Once the plumbing is sealed, you fill the tank with salt. About 1.5 pounds per 10,000 gallons is the rule of thumb, and let the system prime itself. The unit does a self-check, and you'll see a faint green glow indicating it's ready to start generating chlorine. What I found most useful in real-world use is the way the AquaTrol adjusts chlorine output based on the water temperature and usage patterns. In the summer heat, when the pool gets a lot of sun and you're running more frequent swim sessions, the system automatically ramps up production to keep the water sanitized. When the temperature drops a few degrees in the evening, it backs off, which helps avoid that harsh chlorine smell that can make you want to stay out of the water. For families with kids who splash around a lot, that automatic balancing can be a huge time saver. You're not constantly testing the water and adding booster chemicals. The unit does most of that work for you. Now, let's talk about the practical strengths. The first is definitely the soft water claim. Because the system creates chlorine from salt, the resulting water tends to be gentler on eyes and skin compared to traditional chlorine tablets, which can be quite irritating for sensitive swimmers. I've heard from a few pool owners who say their children no longer complain about red eyes after a swim, and the water feels smoother on the skin. That also means your swimwear and poolside fabrics don't fade as quickly, something you'll notice after a season of regular use. Another strength is cost over time. While the upfront price of the AquaTrol can feel steep, you're essentially swapping a recurring expense of chlorine tablets for a one-time purchase of salt, which is cheap and lasts for months. If you calculate the cost per gallon of treated water over a year, the numbers usually tip in favor of the salt system, especially if you have a larger pool at the upper end of the 18,000 gallon range. On the flip side, there are some hidden trade-offs you need to weigh. The system does require a steady power source, and if you have an older pool pump that runs intermittently, you'll see inconsistent chlorine generation. In my own testing, pairing the AquaTrol with a pump that cycles on and off every few minutes caused the chlorine level to dip noticeably, prompting the need for occasional manual adjustments. So if your pump isn't running continuously or you're using a variable speed pump that drops to a very low RPM, you might need to tweak the settings or accept a little extra maintenance. Another practical weakness is the initial salt load. Even though salt is cheap, adding enough to bring the water up to the recommended salinity can be a messy job. You'll end up with a bucket of coarse salt that you have to sprinkle around the pool perimeter and stir in. For people who aren't comfortable handling that volume of granular material, it can be a deterrent. Also, the system's self-cleaning cell needs periodic inspection. The manufacturer advises checking it.